From finally knocking out Pereira after 3 consecutive losses, to stating that the 5th fight should be a winner-takes-all bout, here's the one condition on which Israel Adesanya wants to fight Alex Pereira again. The rivalry between the last stylebender and the Pereira was one the entire UFC community had their eyes on. And it came to a close earlier in 2023 when Adesanya finally beat Pereira in the UFC octagon. His long-awaited victory came at UFC 287 through a brutal second-round knockout. And after multiple attempts, Israel found a way to beat Alex for the first time. The two have a long-standing rivalry that dates way back to their kickboxing days. They've fought 4 times, with Adesanya winning the last match by delivering a beautiful right hand, which knocked the living daylights out of Pereira. Even after 4 fights between the two, fans still haven't had enough of them. Right after their last showdown, the MMA community demanded a 5th fight between them immediately. But according to Adesanya, there's only one way that can happen. In a recent interview, he stated that he wants to fight Pereira again, with the condition that the 5th fight must be a winner-takes-all bout. This means that the winner of the fight will take home all of the prize money, while the loser will go home empty-handed. But Pereira's changed his division to light heavyweight and has already scored his first fight against Jan Blachowicz, where he'll debut in the new weight class at UFC 291 on July 29th in Salt Lake City. According to UFC President Dana White, if Pereira emerges victorious against Blachowicz, then it'd make sense for him to go for the 205-pound title. Adesanya also said that only if he manages to secure the belt would he think about moving up a division himself and arrange yet another showdown with him. But if not, they're both done with their rivalry. Even though everyone else wants to see them drag it out more, truth is, they've moved on. And after 4 matches, it's no wonder why. Things are looking pretty bleak right now because Israel also said that reaching 205 is hard, and he wouldn't bet on it happening. If Alex did win the 205 belt though, they might give him a fast track, and then there would be an epic fight between the two for the 5th time. But take this with a huge grain of salt though, because Adesanya's already tried his hand at light heavyweight, and it didn't turn out well for him. He lost via decision to Blachowicz, who was the champion back then, at UFC 259 in 2021. But he's willing to give it another try and said he would eventually return for a second attempt at that weight class. But while that's a possibility, Adesanya's made peace with his history with Pereira, so a 5th matchup isn't particularly one he's chasing. If Alex does end up climbing the ladder, then it's even better. But since he's already got the win he needed against Alex, he'll be perfectly fine if it never happens. After getting defeated thrice, all he needed was 1 win to put all this behind him. According to Israel, Alex could beat him 10 more times for all he cares, but he wasn't trying to equal out his wins and losses against him. He just needed to prove to himself that he could beat the guy, and wasn't losing because he wasn't competent enough. He believes the judges made a wrong decision during his first fight, and while he had the 2nd and 3rd fights in the bag, Alex got him in the end. He praised Alex, saying that although Israel knew he could beat him, Alex just has that fierce spirit and is a great fighter. He mentioned that he's a cool guy, and he likes his whole origin story, so he's got nothing against him. Israel didn't want his story to be written like he couldn't beat this one guy, despite all those attempts. So he put immense pressure on himself during the last camp, and finally managed to snatch up his well-deserved, hard-earned victory. So after 4 tedious fights, he's ready to shut down the rivalry and move on. And I'm not surprised, with the pressure that was on him to win the last fight. It's no wonder he doesn't want any more of it. After 3 consecutive wins, everyone was under the impression that Pereira would hand Adesanya his 4th defeat at UFC 287. I mean, Pereira's one of the only 2 opponents to put a blemish on his 26-fight record. He's got it all: the drive, the technique, and the knockout power. And even though it looked like history would repeat itself once again, with Pereira coming out on top again, Adesanya wasn't about to let fans underestimate him and get away with it. He may have never won a match against Alex, but he was still one of the best UFC fighters of all time, and held the middleweight title for 3 years, defending his belt 5 times. But after 3 losses, you'd think Israel would have picked up a thing or two about Pereira's fighting style. Lunging at the first mistake his opponent made, He landed a beautiful counter right hand over the top, and followed that up with a right hand that took Pereira out of the game, leaving everyone shook as Izzy finally had the middleweight title back to his name. Although the adrenaline rush had to be crazy, it was definitely exhausting because during the post-fight press conference, Izzy hinted at a retirement date. So don't keep your hopes too high, folks. But speaking of their long-standing history, how exactly did Adesanya lose to the same guy 3 times? What exactly is he dropping that Pereira's picking up on? Well, according to Izzy, the first fight was an unfair decision, and believes he should have been given the victory, especially considering Pereira's state after the fight. Their first fight was also at very uneven odds because Izzy already had a record of 18 straight wins going into the bout, and was considered one of the best middleweight kickboxers in the world. Pereira, on the other hand, was nowhere close to his level and was still a newbie trying to make a name for himself in the sport. Besides that, he had also lost to every other top fighter in the division he faced up until that point, so his win was totally unexpected. In the second fight, Pereira managed to turn the tables in his favor again, and after warming up by throwing some big punches and high kicks, he finally delivered the final blow. It was Izzy's first knockout, and everyone was shocked. It's a milestone no fighter wants to achieve. But while the MMA community was in disbelief, Pereira was having a field day. After all, he just majorly leveled up. Before the third fight, Israel made a grave mistake. When asked about his very first knockout loss against Pereira, he said that it was outdated and historical since he'd already held UFC gold for nearly a year. He said that no one even knew who the Pereira was, and at the end of the day, he was just going to be another commoner boasting about the one time he beat the world legend. Clearly, Pereira took that to heart, because 7 months later, he took 22 minutes to knock Adesanya out, again. After 3 consecutive losses, the fact that Pereira had emerged victorious in all of their previous encounters only added more anticipation for their fourth fight, and had everyone asking the same question, will this be Izzy's lucky match? Seems like he'd finally picked up on his opponent's fighting style, as he got rid of that one annoying stone in his show, sabotaging his perfect record. So with the records majorly lopsided, you'd think that's enough grounds for both of them to continue their rivalry. But now that Izzy's finally got the belt back with his grasp, he was quick to declare their sporting feud at an end. After UFC 287, he told reporters that he doesn't keep scores, but settles them instead. That, combined with Pereira's decision to move up to the light heavyweight decision, makes it look like their chapter's coming to an end. But after Adesanya's latest announcement, he clearly doesn't have a problem reopening that feud again. Despite the fact that he's gotten his revenge, he still feels that there is unfinished business between the two. By placing the condition that the fifth fight should be a winner-takes-all bout, he believes that this will motivate Pereira to take the fight more seriously and give it his all. He also thinks that it will make the fight more exciting for the fans, as both fighters will have everything on the line. And although it all depends on whether Alex wins the 205 belt or not, if a fight between them is to happen, it'll only be at light heavyweight, since Alex has already moved up. And since there's no one left at middleweight for Israel to fight, it's likely he'll be following suit and stepping up his weight class too. So, from stating the fifth fight should be a winner-takes-all bout, to finally knocking out Pereira after 3 consecutive losses. That's the one condition on which Israel Adesanya wants to fight Alex Pereira again.